Definitely. So being in that Charlotte area, man, that's where I am right now. So
Okay.
best restaurants that you went to.
Man, that's so long ago. I haven't been in Charlotte since 2006 when I lived there.
Woo.
And I'm pretty sure a lot of the restaurants aren't even there. And I didn't even have that type of money back then to even go to any restaurants. But I remember my rookie dinner. I remember us going to, I think it was called like Bentley's. It's in Uptown.
Never been there.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a step above Ruth's Chris. You have your regular steakhouses, and then you have
Yeah.
like those elite ones. And that was like one of those elite ones. That's probably one of the ones I remember the most. Other than that, man, I was at the Peter Pit across the street from the Holiday Inn, if it's still there off of College Street. Food like that. I still didn't really know what I was doing. I'm from Oakland. I'm about to eat, what I can eat that's cheap. So I wasn't going
Yeah.
to like real nice restaurants. And it's been a long time, but I still have friends down there. And when we go back, I know we always try to get over to the Flying Biscuit. I believe that's what it is,
That's
like a
pretty
breakfast
good.
spot that's pretty good.
Pretty good. I've been there.
Yeah, so that's probably the one that stands out right now.
Definitely, man. So your transition from Carolina to another city, did, did that did it take you a while to that culture shock?
Yeah, I mean, from going from Oakland to Carolina was crazy, because obviously Oakland's more of a city, San Francisco's right there, it's more hustle and bustle. Obviously, Carolina's a lot more laid back, Southern hospitality, people being just genuinely nicer. So that was a real cool experience to be a part of, and living somewhat in the country compared to where I was from. You drive 45 minutes, you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. Where in California, you drive 45 minutes, it still feels like in the city somewhere. You can get to somebody, and so that was a little bit of a shock. Obviously, being away from my family, and then transitioning from Carolina to DC wasn't as big of a jump because DC, even though we were out in like the suburbs of DC, it was a closer fit and feel to Oakland, San Francisco area. So that wasn't as big as a shift. But it was really cool to get over there and check that out. The biggest thing is always just trying to create those new relationships that are hard when you're walking into a building and organization. And I walked in the middle of the year where the team has already went through training camp, OTAs, and you have those bonds and those relationships and circles that people are already kind of formed. And here comes this new guy. I don't know how long I'm going to be there. How do you then, kind of interject yourself into that culture and make friends? And so that was always uneasy, especially when you see guys that you looked up to, like Clint Portis and Chris Samuels. You had those type of guys. Sean Taylor was on that team, and even though we were the same age, he was a superstar by that time. So it was just that different dynamic that you always have a sense of insecurity, especially being young and you trying to get in and want to be where they're at, and how do you deal with that when at the end of the day you figure out, these are just cats like you dudes. They can play ball, they have a gift, but at the end of the day, they're just regular dudes, man. You just got to talk to them, get to know them, and share your story. And a lot of times you find a lot of commonality in how you grew up, things you've encountered, and it becomes real easy.
Definitely. So to that point in your career, what was the hardest playbook that you had to learn, man?
Well, at that point, defense is defense, and I played defensive line, so it really wasn't complicated stuff, for me. Actually, being a Cal guy, you're always pretty bright, pretty intelligent, and I've always been able just to receive information and pick up information, even when I was a young kid. So that never was ever an issue for me, and so and back then playing D line, it's over and under. Am I a 3 technique? Am I a nose? I'm a 5 technique. Real easy stuff. Blitz. Where's the rip layers? Okay, that's where it's coming from. I'm moving opposite. So those things were fairly easy. I guess as I moved further and further away from the ball and dealing, as a linebacker, outside linebacker, then eventually off the ball, having to make calls, make adjustments to formations and coverages, that became a little bit harder. And trying to think who had. Normally, it's guys that have playbooks that it's hard to find patterns or commonalities or word associations. Because most coaches, if you want to make something, especially defensively, because you're so reactionary to everything, you want to have things that make sense and they tie in throughout your entire playbook. And so I guess maybe the one that didn't do it the most may have been like Rex Ryan's, but I played well in that. By that time, I was old enough to understand it and pick it up and figure out how to work through his playbook, because there wasn't a lot of word associations that carried over or rules that stuck throughout the system.
Yes, sir.
There was more of adjustments, and so I was able to pick that up. But that probably was the most difficult when I look back, and as far as other guys trying to pick it up too. But for me, I actually benefited from a lot of his intricacies and complications, because it allowed me to free up and make a lot of plays.
Definitely. So being from Washington to that transition later with Buffalo, being in that same up north, was that like a home away from home for you?
Yeah. I really enjoyed Buffalo. It's a real blue collar city, but those winters, they can have them, they can keep them. I don't know no part of them unless I decide I want to go up there and visit. But outside of that, the people are great, down to earth, just family oriented, and obviously having. I had 4 kids, but 3 were still living with us at the time. Just really enjoyed it. They love that atmosphere. They love the college feel to game days. They love the community aspect. And one thing about Bills Mafia, obviously they show up to games like no other, but they also come out, to community events and support us off the field too, and support one another. And so it was great. I really enjoyed it. We actually lived up there pretty much full time my last 2 years there, while we were building our home in Arizona, and just I wouldn't trade it for the world, even though it was butt cold up there. It was well worth it, just because of the relationships you got to dwell in and really cultivate.
Definitely. So your one Pro Bowl was with them. So what stands out about that year for you, man?
It was crazy, and that was my first Pro Bowl as a position player. My second total. I actually went to the Pro Bowl when I was with Washington in 2012 season as well, and that was special teams. And nobody likes special teams for I don't know what reason, but it's actually one of the harder things to do.
Definitely.
And it's only one guy that gets to go. So I think I actually appreciate my special teams Pro Bowl, even though everybody's going to remember the 2016 Pro Bowl more so because I was older at that point. People say I come out of nowhere, but I just had an injury a couple of years prior, so I kind of disappeared a little bit as far as my production. And obviously the NFL is very short-minded, so they don't really look at somebody's total career, especially if you're like a guy like me that's kind of always been like that second-tier guy, never that marquee household national name.
Yes, sir.
You kind of forget, like, okay, he played somewhere else too. He just didn't pop up at 32, 33 and have, I think I had 12 and a half sacks that year. And the thing I remember most, I think just naturally, like, I didn't even want to go to Buffalo. Obviously a lot of ignorance as far as the culture up there, the environment, but obviously it turned out to be one of my best places. And again, God kind of forced me to do something I didn't want to do because it was my only offer. So I was forced to take it. And it was the best decision God ever made, for me as far as it comes to football, because I was able to rejuvenate my career, come out, have those 12 and a half sacks, build relationships with guys like Kyle Williams, and our families became really close, and countless other guys. I think about being up there with Sean McDermott. But that year in particular, going to the Pro Bowl, my oldest son was old enough to come and hang out with me, so be able to bring him to the games, to the practices, was really cool to interact that way. Was able to bring my entire family out. We all went to Disneyland. It was actually the last time that my grandfather just passed this last year, end of last year. And that was like one of the last times as like a family, we all got together and went to Disneyland, Disney World down there in Orlando, and he rode every ride. We just had a blast. And so that was really cool about it. And then obviously the game. And then after the game, I won the MVP. And so was able to win a Genesis G90. Didn't know what it was, but it's a nice car. Still got it today. Was actually driving it this morning as I dropped my daughter off to school. So it's a lot of memories that go into that 2016 season, but it has to be highlighted by the experience of the Pro Bowl, like the week of, not even like the game or the car, but just hanging out with my family, my grandfather, going to Universal Studios, going over to Disney World, and just having a real good family experience together.
Definitely, man. So along your career, man, like your rookie when you signed that contract for the first time, what was your biggest purchase as an NFL player?
It probably was getting my Maxima. I had a maximum 3.5. You couldn't tell me nothing. I didn't even own it. I leased it, you know. So that was my biggest payment that I have on a week to week basis. So yeah, you know, and I've never been a guy to spend a lot. I used to have my boy, one of my good friends growing up, Charles. We played high school ball together. I've known him probably since the 5th or 6th grade. And he's so quick to tell people, man, this dude didn't spend no money. The Jordans come out, and he over on at Foot Locker on the wall two for $89. Man, I'm trying to look for a deal. I'm trying to make my money last. I wasn't drafted. Wasn't highly sought after, and I was always a bubble guy, and I never wanted to be a guy to get this blessing or this head start in life and then throw it all away. So if I played 1 or 2 years, I at least wanted to walk away with something like, hey, okay, at least I saved $100,000 or $150,000 to help me transition into that next aspect of life. And so I was never a big spender. There's certain things that I like that I'll spend a little money on, but most of those things are, legacy type builders, like training people or experiences with the family when you take trips, things that you're going to remember and things that are going to impact other people.